problem when we talk about biology is neither of us are scientists, but
you don't need to be a scientist to know man and woman.
It is necessary to serve reality on a platter of knowledge. Here are entitled Wokies who got humbled by educated citizens.
You grew up in a black neighborhood, right? People, I know you know somebody named Peanut, right?
Yeah.
Right. You don't say, well, that's not your legal name. Your mama named you Joe, I'm gonna call you Joe.
No, I'm saying if a name is one thing, but if you're asking me to change pronouns, I'm not gonna do that because these are established pronouns. You're asking me to now change the English language, right? We know why we call female, she, her, girl, woman, okay? These are words that have meanings. These are words that have meaning. So if this is a book and this is a mug, could you call this a book and call this a mug? Yes, you could do that if you want to change it, but words have meanings, right? So now if I switch it and you say, well, this mug wants to be called a book, it's a mug. It's just a mug. This is the word we've established for mugs. This is the word we've established for books. So you're asking me to change the actual meaning of words to accommodate you. I'm not going to do that.
No.
That's not the request, though. It is. Because not only is it a request, you can now get in trouble.
If you want grammar to obey your feelings, maybe you should have been the one to write it. Pronouns are set in stone. Feelings can be tweaked by ice cream. Do you see it now?
There is research in science that shows that when you have a teacher that looks like you do better.
You're talking about building relationships. They're actually failing when it comes to actually teaching these kids things. This is why all the inner city communities are failing black children because they're focusing on the art and not the actual facts.
You're saying
Across
that faculty
5
of color are not
schools in Baltimore, which is an inner city, which focuses, I suppose, on the art of teaching, they couldn't find a single child that was proficient in reading and writing because they think that having somebody who looks like you somehow means that it's going to be better. And also, when we talk about these quotas and someone says, well, there's this many white people teaching and there's this many black people teaching. Welcome to America. Black Americans represent just 13% of the population, okay? White Americans represent 60% of the population. So if you walk into a room and you find that there's only 13% of the room that is black American and 60% of the room is white American, you are actually walking into a room that is holistic, a room that actually represents America. You can't just say we want black Americans to represent 90% of people in every single room. It just won't work.
What science research are these, if we ask? Does that mean that women can only learn from other women and men from men? Will a child learn better for a child then? That's no science research. If all you want to teach children is victimhood and hatred, then sure, we believe your science. Still on the topic of schools, this is what happens when the administration focuses on everything but education.
Despite the board's attempt to deny it, schools are quickly becoming a place where promoting activism is actually more important than promoting education. There are political signs all over RHS about specific races that matter, specific sexual orientations that matter, but when I questioned the RHS administration about how these signs were political, they told me that they were supporting human rights. So when I questioned why the equity statement couldn't represent all students, they told me that to even ask that question was outlandish and offensive. They told me, quote, whites have a pretty good situation right now, unquote. So is that not racism? Disregarding my question merely because of the color of my skin. To be honest, after enduring a year of the people in charge telling me that I'm a racist and I'm privileged, I've never noticed race more. Now, members of the board, I want you to take a good look at yourselves in the mirror tonight and ask, are you really standing up for the equality of all people, or are you just pushing a damaging political ideology on our students?
Well, this is a good thing. A student schooling an entire school district. He definitely did not learn that in the classroom, but this young man is spewing knowledge.
In America, 60% of the shootings, robberies, and the homicides are committed by black people, often against other black people. You can't blame it on poverty. You can't blame it on racism. It is the breakdown of the nuclear intact family, and neither side is talking about it.
Let me ask you a question. What do white people do wrong?
What do you mean, what do white people do? I'm not worried about white people. I'm worried about what's going on with us.
But if there's systemic racism in this country, which we know it is.
No, I don't say there is. You say there is. I don't believe that.
Have you ever heard the term "nigga wake-up call"?
No.
It is an incident where a person of color forgets that they are of color and are reminded by an unexpected act of racism.
I'm acutely aware, Charlemagne, that I'm a black person, just as you are a black person. And when Joe Biden insulted you by saying, you ain't really black, we don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump. And Joe Biden has lied for decades about his civil rights record, claiming that he desegregated movie theaters and restaurants in Wilmington, Delaware, when he didn't do any of that. And he came in here and told you you aren't even black unless you think a certain kind of way. It seemed to me that should have been Nick Wake.
So because you are losing the argument, you just had to smuggle some other people into the conversation? The people who cry racism definitely have a plank in their eye and worry about the speck in others. If you're so woke, how come Larry Elder had to give you the wake-up call, Charlemagne?
What's demigender?
Sir, that's a term of the people that are eligible for that particular scholarship that is available to. It's a person who looks at their gender in a different way than I do, sir.
Well, sure, that's all of these people. You're a cisgender man. You don't even get to apply.
Well,
Do you know what demigender really means?
I'm not really sure, sir.
Right. So, do you know what agender means? All one word, not a space gender, but agender.
Sir, I don't.
Right. So here we are pushing a fellowship, calling for people that you don't even know what the words mean. And the number one group of people, the cisgender men, are excluded. In the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion, should we be pushing programs that we can't define that exclude the largest group of servicemen?
Not to be discriminatory, but if the prestigious Air Force is offering their best to people who do not even know who they are, every American might need to start building their bunkers now.
You dropped out of college, and your highest...
Community college.
Sorry, your Harper College experience, I apologize.
Barely was smart enough to make it through community college.
Okay. What are your qualifications for arguing that college is a scam, or really having any economical knowledge at all, when likely the vast majority of the students here know more than you?
Who's Milton Friedman?
Who's Milton Friedman? I have no idea, and it's not important to this conversation. The same thing.
Who is John Maynard Keynes?
Okay, obviously I know who Keynes is.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
He's the most famous economist of all time.
You don't know Milton Friedman?
I mean, that's an economist.
F.A. Hayek?
I don't know who that is.
You're right, I barely made it through community college because I was too busy, starting a national youth movement with hundreds of thousands of members, raising hundreds of millions of dollars, having a top 10 most popular podcast, and reaching tens of millions of people online every day. I'm a job creator, entrepreneur, autodidact. Do you know what that word means? Self-taught. Yeah, self-taught. You should probably learn that word if you're going to come up and insult other people's intelligence.
Whoever told these people that going to college makes you an immediate success must have been drunk of rainbow juice. You're still trying to make it through finals, but you are asking about the qualifications of a person who already began a track record? Funny.
Hi, Mr. Kirk, sir. My name is Ken Trenier. As a first-generation Chinese American, would me challenging critical race theories against my professor count as communication? Because my parents came here as immigrants, they never victimized themselves, and yes, they make six figures over the years because that's the American dream, baby!
So let me ask you, do you go to school locally here?
Yes, sir. I'm a college student at UNM.
And they're teaching critical race theory and all that?
Sadly, yeah.
And so it's just basically white supremacy is the law of the land and all that. So I'm curious, technically you're a minority in this country and they tell you you're oppressed, and you tell them actually, no, I'm not.
Yes, sir. And all the white liberal chicks and guys get all mad at me.
I can't do any better than that, and I'm so glad you're in America, man. We need more people like you. God bless you.
That was awesome.
Just wanted to give a refresher. Let's hope that his and all the other critical race theory professors see this, shall we?
We have the freedom to choose lots of things, but you don't have the freedom to choose to
Do you
end
know
the
what
life
the
of
word
another human being.
heretic means?
Oh, yeah, I do. I'm sitting, yeah. Well, I think if we were going to look at heresy, and I was looking at something you had written in 2022 when Roe was reversed, you said God is a pro-choice God. That would be a heretic.
Your
Someone
beliefs
who says that
are
God
religious.
Is pro-choice.
These are religious opinions.
So I think the question for you, Pastor, is, are you saying you don't believe that there are some things that are always morally wrong? Do you believe that?
I believe that morality is obviously something personal, that I have my own moral code that I believe inside of myself. I believe that morality, societally speaking, and I think that history shows this very clearly, is that morality is relative.
Wow.
That's ways
a really
that we
shocking statement to come from a Christian pastor. Pastor, your comments today are shocking because it's heretical what you were saying. It's shocking.
Exactly.
Final thoughts, sir.
If Kristen is not going to say it, we will. That is not a Christian pastor. That is a wolf in sheep's clothing. God is pro-commandment, pro-Jesus, pro-holiness, and definitely pro-life.
How much debt do you have to go to school, by the way?
None.
None? So who's paying for your college then?
Probably the federal government.
So I'm paying for your college, is what you're saying. My taxes are paying for your college. So wait, you're on grant or what?
I'm not going to discuss my college finances.
Well, no, this is really important. This is why you're so defensive of college, because you don't have to walk around the rest of your life with a $100,000 student loan debt. I, the taxpayer, when I write my check to the IRS, I'm subsidizing your ability to go to college.
Okay.
You should have skin in the game. You should, and you don't right now. You are doing a freeloading thing. Of course you should be defensive of college.
I pay taxes. I pay federal taxes. I pay state tax.
You think you pay anywhere close to the tuition value you get at the school? Probably not.
Yeah, probably I do.
Hold on. How much is it to go to school here?
Around $11,000.
$11,000 a semester. So you pay $22,000 a year in taxes?
No.
Okay, got it. This is why you're so defensive. It's easy to be defensive of something you're not paying for.
Actually, it's easier to defend something you're benefiting from. I mean, what do you expect? Just let him graduate. His song just might change.
Mr. Shapiro, you talked about white privilege. And just this week, I had a conversation with Rachel Lazar, who's done some work, a Jewish American woman who's done some work on this area, as well as having extensive conversations with Dr. Greg Parks of Wake Forest University, who's also talked quite a bit about critical race theory. And it's my understanding that white privilege is not telling individuals that they cannot speak, but it is a term for societal privilege that individuals have as a benefit.
Oh, here we go again, ladies and gentlemen. Should I apologize for using generalized lingo? Duke, that's not happening.
White people, I didn't know that white privilege actually went into that sphere. My understanding is it's just, and the issue is that white privilege makes people uncomfortable to talk about the societal privilege that they have.
Well, to me, what I say on campuses all the time is if you want to cite instances of racism that we can all find and fight together, that's something that I'm more than willing to stand next to you and fight, because that's obviously stuff that we should fight together. But when you just say that there is a white privilege out there in the ether and that by dint of birth your skin color generates for you an advantage, what you're really saying to people is that your view is less valuable because you have not experienced what I've experienced. And that is an identity argument, that's a character argument, that's not a rational political argument that can actually be taken on in any way. It's more of a cudgel and a club than it is an attempt.
The whole critical race theory thing gives off the same aura as poor people despising the rich because they are well off. You know those movies where the rougher kids mock the one with a nicer bag and cooler shoes? The insult is like, oh no, Cinderella, sorry princess. Exactly. Nothing concrete. Just bitterness, I'd say.
Male gametes. That's what makes me male.
No, your sperm don't make you male.
Then what does?
It's a constellation.
In reality, in truth, okay?
Whose truth are we talking about?
The same truth that says we're sitting in this room right now, you and I.
No, you're not listening.
If I see a chicken laying eggs and I say that's a female chicken laying eggs, did I assign female, or am I just observing a physical reality that's happening in the world?
Okay, can we talk about how completely manipulative her tone was? It's a constellation. What is a constellation? The life we all see, live, and breathe? He's not listening? Ma'am, you don't seem to be thinking.
You should be asking women what it means to be a woman, especially trans women, what it means to be a woman.
I'm asking all kinds of people. Can anyone have an opinion about it?
Only people who are women. But it's not like I come around and say what a gay man is allowed to be.
So you're saying if you're not a woman, then you shouldn't have an opinion.
Where does a guy get a right to say what a woman is? Women only know what women are.
Are you a cat?
No.
Can you tell me what a cat is?
We should be asking trans women especially. Get that hat off your head. The warmth might be affecting some facilities.
Men do not menstruate. Only women menstruate. Now, you can call yourself whatever you want.
Cis men don't menstruate, but trans men do menstruate.
No,
Same
they
as
don't.
non-binary people.
Only women.
Menstruating is not exclusive to cis women. No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
So explain to me as to why my body menstruated at some point.
If your chromosomes...
Your body menstruated. Your body did. Is this transition thing just a body-hating thing? She makes it sound like her period was an out-of-body experience.
X and you're young, you menstruate. If you're XY, you don't.
Correct, but what about trans men and non-binary? We're
not
excluding
men.
A whole group of people
They're women
that
dressed
menstruate.
as men.
Well, what's a man to you? You define a man for me.
You have chromosomes that are X and Y. That's what a man is.
So why are we just looking at the science of this as an example?
Science.
When we've learned sex and gender identity are they're completely different things.
They're not completely different.
They are
things.
completely different.
Completely different words.
Sex is what you're born with, the sexual reproductive organs you have. Gender is what you identify with. They're completely
Well, I don't
different
accept that
things.
distinction. You have to argue for it. You're just giving a conclusion. You're just making it up.
Sorry, science doesn't lie. Science doesn't feel. Science observes and stamps the truth.
Do you know what the leading cause of death for pregnant people is?
Pregnant people? Mothers?
If you'd like to call them mothers, not all of them are mothers.
What are they if they're not mothers?
They're pregnant people.
What people other than mothers are pregnant?
It's interesting because you come into this conversation, trying to hold this moral superiority. But when I use inclusive language, which it only takes a couple extra syllables to use inclusive language.
To include
and
who?
It seems to include people who don't identify as women but can become pregnant.
Then in order to be a moral person, I need to accept the idea that a man can really become a woman.
You are trying to deny someone of their identity and deny what their life experience is, and that doesn't seem like a moral stance to me.
I identify as being correct and more correct than you on this issue. And I would just ask that you accept and affirm my identity. Do you?
You are not a medical professional, and abortion and pregnancy is a medical concern. That's not your identity.
I promise you, that's my identity.
Her mother must be so proud. Look at her little girl go. Sorry, her little person.
You've asserted that no one would ever see me as a woman, that nobody would ever see or could see a transgender person as a woman, and yet I have dozens of friends from diverse backgrounds, women from the reservation, a woman from Japan, several immigrant women. I have my coworkers, I have my boss, my VP, my CEO, all respecting me as a woman, my family, my long-term friends who are actually here with me. All of these people assure me, I'm a woman. They'll tell me, girl, there is no way you are a man. They see me as a woman. So the question, how can you assert that nobody would ever see me as a woman when my material experience tells me you're wrong?
Okay. It's interesting that that's the part of my talk you chose to ask a question about, because that's not in my talk at all. I don't believe I said that no one would ever see you as a woman. I mean, it's possible, I suppose, that you could fool someone. Now, you brought this up, so I have to tell you that you brought this up. You've put your identity on the table for conversation. And so I'm going to say you wouldn't fool me at all. I mean, I see a man 100%. And I think that most people would. Now, the fact that you have people in your life who are saying to you, oh, you're totally a woman, that's exactly what I'm talking about. No one in my life has ever once said to me, you're totally a man, Matt. You know, if a friend of mine called me on the phone and said, listen, Matt, I want you to know you're really a man, I would think that there was something wrong with him. I would say, why are you saying that at all? It doesn't make any sense. So the fact that this is a conversation to begin with tells me, it only proves the point that I'm trying to make, that your identity, even in your own mind, is up for, is something that you need to be assured of.
Be honest, was that a ma'am or a sir? This is what happens when you don't tell your friends and family members the truth. They attend talks, grab microphones, and embarrass you.
To like being a cat? Well, I know exactly my purpose in life here. Just nice to be able to not be a human for a little while.
Is this real life? Or are these societally imposed constructs? Through something like pet play, we can liberate ourselves from those constraints.
Yeah, she's an award-winning cat.
Quick, disturbing ad break. Back to the video.
So I have a quote from you here. It says, I think that their, meaning the Black Lives Matter movement, whole existence is just a liberal progressive socialist movement to make sure that they keep the Black community on the 21st century economic plantation that's been created by the left. Would you like to clarify that?
I can clarify it very easily. You can follow the money, and the money of Black Lives Matter goes back to a guy, George Soros, so that tells you one thing. And let me tell you, all lives matter. It's not just about Black Lives Matter. If you really are concerned, start talking about school choice in the Black community. If you really are concerned, start talking about the decimation of the Black family, which I don't hear. Do not be manipulated by people that are using you as a political tool so that you can keep your own people suppressed. Get off the plantation and think on your own.
It is such a perfect statement that it doesn't need an extra boost. Very well said.
I had an abortion, and I'm not sorry about it. You know why?
Tell me.
Because my ex-husband was an abusive alcoholic, and all he would have done is make that child's life hell.
So why did you punish the child instead of him?
Because if I would have let it come here, he wouldn't have let it be adopted.
So instead of letting him punish the child, you punish the child preemptively?
Correct.
Well, that's awful. I would say that is sin. When you stand before God, in that sin, he's going to say, you murdered your child. And if you don't confess that sin and lay it at the foot of the cross.
But I'm telling you,
I'm saying,
I already have.
You said it was good, though.
It was a long time ago.
Why'd you confess something that you don't regret?
I already asked forgiveness for it, is what I'm saying.
Well, then come into agreement with God that don't say it was good, say it was wicked, and thank Christ for washing you clean of that.
Wow, let's pray this woman heals someday. She hates her husband and hated the child she would have had with him. That's all. Her ex-husband abused her and she abused her unborn child in response.
I find it really unsatisfying when you talk about gender and being like male or female as just reducing it down to chromosomes. Do you feel as if there's like a really important like social aspect to like being a man, you know, that just doesn't simply get like transcribed by your chromosomes? Do you think that there's like something more to like humans than just like
I think there are
sexes?
masculine qualities that attach to biological manhood that have been generalized. They don't necessarily apply to everyone because you can have effeminate men who don't necessarily fit those categories. If you were to ask me what makes a good man or a useful man, I would give you a description that would include social categories like protecting your family, going out and earning, making sure that you build institutions in your society. Right?
So nothing that has to do with chromosomes.
But
nothing like chromosomes.
But in the end, if you have to ask for a definition of male or female, what you're talking about is the most irreducible form of this is the biology, which is why you can uncover a body from 30,000 years ago, and a scientist can tell you whether it is a male or a female without ever knowing how that person lived.
All right, thank you.
The insane need for him to get a gotcha. You could use biology. You could use psychology. You could use any parameter in the world, and a man would remain a man.
So a lot of our social selves are codified and encultured in the language that we use. We really use it to construct our entire society. And what's certainly true is that there is a huge variance of gender presentation and gender identity within humankind. There isn't simply
humankind,
men and women. Exactly, humankind in space of mankind.
You wouldn't say mankind, that should be, you know.
I wouldn't, just because humankind is a more accurate descriptor, in the same way that me using they, them is a more accurate descriptor of my identity than using he or she.
Are people so threatened by language? Humankind? How about you call us a price or a herd? You know, to accommodate the ones who don't feel like Homo sapiens.
Hey, if that had been back.
Well, so in universities, a bit like the University of Hull, universities in Germany, their lecturers are using gender-neutral language to refer to students because it's inclusive of everyone and gives that space for trans people who are neither male nor female.
Yeah, it's a matter, Andrew, it's a matter of courtesy, this, and sensitivity, isn't it?
Courtesy is all very well. I mean, you're describing encouraging people to use certain words. My problem is when words are policed, when language becomes policed. That is my problem. I mean, look, we can all get back to. We can all go back. Those sorts of things, humankind or mankind, I mean, those are sort of interchangeable now. They're synonymous anyway. We're talking about when people actively, and it is a minority of activists, it really is a minority, seek to have people disciplined or sacked because they refuse to use language that they are imposing. That's not the evolution of language, that's the imposition of language, and I think that's problematic.
What about people who are non-binary? What about people who are gender fluid?
We're all male and female. We've always, yes, of course, we're all male and female. There are
what about transgender people?
There are a tiny minority of people who have intersex conditions, and there are a tiny minority of people who have some condition where they may have a female brain and a male body. Apart from this, we are all male and female, and the attempt to suggest that there is a third gender is, as far as I'm concerned, it's an ideological and a political project. It doesn't exist. The words male and female have existed throughout history, throughout the world. They refer, men are people who have penises, women are people who have vaginas. It's as simple as that. I would absolutely refuse to refer to this woman here, who's clearly a woman, as a they, because for me that would be imposing an ideological, political system. Because she is. If everybody watching this programme can see that she is a woman. Your respect for me is already diminished if you insist that I ascribe to some ideology of third gender, which I do not agree with. If this he and she is socially constructed, how come everybody watching this, everybody in the audience, can basically identify male and female just by looking? Occasionally there are people who are more difficult to identify, and we try to be tactful, but it's not just socially ascribed, it relates to a physical reality reflected in our voices, our appearances, in all kinds of ways.
I like it. It's ironic. I think it's pretty funny. But so you're very against kind of. You're very you're not a huge fan of socialism. I'm kind of getting that vibe. So what is? I've got two questions. What is in America what is your vision? What is your perfect idea of healthcare? Because in the UK we very much like our socialized healthcare. Even you guys want to keep it. So what is your vision for perfect healthcare in your Mad Max kind of small government world?
Mad Max. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. Kind of like a wasteland, no government. I know it's not like that at all.
You ever heard of LASIK eye surgery before? So how's LASIK eye surgery regulated in the States?
I'm not sure. How is it?
In the Mad Max world.
Tell me.
Well, in the Mad Max world that you're trying to fearmonger, it's not covered by insurance.
I know it's not true, but it's just
So it's in the private market. So I'd like the U.S. healthcare system to work how the LASIK eye surgery industry has worked over the last 10 years, where it's a vital organ, not covered by insurance, not covered by government hospitals, not covered by Medicaid, and not covered by Medicare, where it's a cash-only transaction. So over the last 10 years, the most amazing medical advancements around LASIK eye technology have stemmed from America, and the price has gone down dramatically. So it used to be $20,000 per eye, now you can get it $750 per eye. It used to be a 3-week recovery time, now it's a 48-hour recovery time. It's a vital organ. So there's the arguments that somehow this is not necessary, there's not a high level of precision, gets completely and totally dismissed. The market works no matter where it is, whether it be in healthcare, food, transportation, housing, technology, communication. So I want more market forces. I want healthcare to be bought across state lines in the states. I want a government that does not pick crony favors of hospitals that make big contributions, or drug companies that have the right lobbyists, or trial lawyers that have proximity to Capitol Hill. The market works no matter where it is tried in the states. It's a totally screwed up system because it's half cronyist, half government run, and there are some really good parts of the U.S. healthcare system if you can afford it. We have the best treatment if you can afford it. You roll your eyes. How do you get things for more people to afford things? Through competition. We do not have that in the U.S. healthcare. So we solve half the equation. Half the equation is quality. The rest of the world benefits from the U.S. medical advancements every single year. Whether it be heart monitor machines, whether it be pharmaceutical breakthroughs, 90% of the most instrumental and important drugs that are used in this country around the world stem from billions of dollars of research and development incentives that are put in the United States of America. So the rest of the world benefits from the U.S. healthcare industry, whether you like it or not.
What a self-righteous and annoying question. Anyway, the answer as always was served with knowledge and facts, not feelings and an attitude.
Immigrants commit less crime than U.S.-born citizens.
Illegal immigrants. I'm talking about illegal immigrants. I'm not talking about immigrants. I'm talking about illegal immigrants. I'm an immigrant. You're an immigrant. We're all immigrants.
The Pew Research says that there are, for immigrants on the whole,
Come on, try getting it out. Try getting it out.
I'll get it out.
I mean, I don't know if you're going to put this on television, but you don't even know what you're talking about. Try getting it out. Go ahead.
Well, that's some food for thought, or tearjerkers in the shower. Depends on how you look at it.
Why have you not called out President Trump, who violated the Emoluments Clause by allowing Saudi Arabian billionaires prior to his inauguration to buy spaces in his hotel in exchange for access to the
Well, first of all, it's
president?
not a violation of the Emoluments Clause because they're independent customers at a property that he has a lease for. That's a really convoluted argument.
Okay, so you're
like,
admitting that there's a conflict of interest in some asset, and he's going to be the president tomorrow. So you think that's okay?
When you have a multi-billionaire running for
but you're
office
so against these
with over
Saudi Arabian
100
billionaires,
properties
right?
across the world, you can't be accountable for the hundreds of thousands of customers that run through your property.
The hundreds of thousands, as in the Saudi government, who
hundreds of thousands of people. And by the way, so let me ask you a question. What did the Trump family and Trump enterprise do to any official or person affiliated with a foreign government that stayed any of their properties? What did they do with that money?
I don't know.
They gave it back to the government, because if you were so informed, you would know that. So that's how
Oh, just wait. It gets better.
Okay, so they
Because they
basically
gave it back.
tried, got caught, and then gave the money back. Sounds like a good plan.
Well, no, they preemptively saw the potential issue and they avoided it. And so, again, if you want some agreement in Middle East, I'm happy to talk about how the U.S. has been actually, I think, too tilted in the direction.
Tweet one thing that's not about Obama and his drone strikes, but about how Trump has increased drone strikes in his first year of
that's not
presidency.
correct. Drone strikes have gone down dramatically.
Yes, it is.
I have praised.
Google, look it up.
Right. So I've praised.
And
the
also,
troop
he
in
just
Syria,
Wait,
troop
can I
withdrawal
just
in
say,
Afghanistan.
it's his personal Twitter feed. So this is, I always find it weird when people tell me what to tweet. Like, I get your,
By the way,
you want
I'm
to
not
know what
the
he thinks.
says he's so angry about it and wants
you
to
want to
end
know
all
what he
wars,
thinks?
right?
That's
And
fine.
he
You can
hasn't
ask
tweeted about
him. You
ending
can't
a
tell him
single
what
one.
to tweet.
By the way, I'm not the press secretary of the United States.
This is like insane.
You pretty much repeat everything that the press secretary says, don't you?
Well, no, actually,
you're talking head
I
for
expound on
billionaires.
I talk about different
That's
things.
who funds your organization, and that's why
You're right.
here.
We're funded by over
funds our
35,000 grassroots donors across the country with hundreds of thousands
those
of students on
grassroots
1,400 high
donors
school
that
and
you
college
won't
campuses
make
across the
public
country.
because you don't want to.
We list over 200 of our
I wanna see
donors
how
on our
many
website. We're
members-
funded by some of the most
Turning
successful
Point
entrepreneurs
USA
from the bottom
went
up.
there.
And we love the fact
Charlie?
that we are funded by job creators.
Don't
we
you love
job
that
creators?
the only 501c3 organizations that they want to make their donors public are all conservative? Like, do you think he goes after all the liberal ones and says make your donors public? Absolutely not. There's always a double standard. You probably don't go after all of the other liberal organizations
I go
and
after
say
Think Progress.
And you told
who
them to make
funds
their.
them
You
then?
just show up at their. Who funds them then?
Tandon, what?
So you asked them. Did you tell them to make their donors public?
I'm not with them right now, Emma.
I didn't think you did.
He must have had a couple of energy drinks before coming up to ask his question and make some accusations. He is so hyped.
I am against that. I'm for the Clinton Foundation. You want to talk about free speech? Why have you not said anything about
You're for the
Wiki-
Clinton
WikiLeaks
Foundation?
and-
Saudi
and-
Arabia funded the Clinton Foundation, the
Yes,
very
exactly.
country
And
you
WikiLeaks-
just said that committed genocide.
Okay, I got it. So Saudi Arabia, right? They funded the Clinton Foundation, correct?
Say that what?
Saudi Arabia funded the Clinton Foundation. Do you know how we found out about that? WikiLeaks, right? Yes, that's how that information was released in the DNC emails. Okay, so you have not denounced Trump at all for basically changing the way journalism functions by arresting Julian Assange, which is probably the most important free speech case
He didn't
in American
arrest
history.
Julian Assange.
The only person
he was
who's revealed
evicted
war
from
crimes
the
other than Glenn
Ecuadorian
Greenwald.
embassy and arrested by UK officials. Donald Trump did not go with
This has nothing to do with
handcuffs
that.
to London and arrest Julian Assange.
If you don't think that Julian Assange was arrested and is going to be extradited to the United States because he pissed
Has he
off
been?
the elites of this country, then you are clearly not informed on WikiLeaks.
Okay, so now you're going forward about things that haven't happened, and you want Charlie to debate that.
So you want me to denounce a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, this is,
a conspiracy
we can't
theory?
debate
How
something that
about
hasn't happened.
the Trump administration has attempted to
Right, we're not
extradite.
informed about the future. You are
They
correct.
have said that they wanted to extradite Julian Assange, correct?
Okay, but you just said that we were not informed if we don't think that they're going to in the future.
Okay, but
Extradite.
what if they do? Can you
Well,
agree
why are
to
we doing
publicly
this? Is so
defend
weird.
Julian
We can't
Assange,
have an imaginary
who has revealed
conversation.
war crimes
We can't have an imaginary
committed by our
conversation.
government? Please tell me that you will denounce him being arrested for doing so.
I refuse. First of all, I hope you never go to law school because you should never engage in a hypothetical or something that hasn't yet happened. So I
happened.
refuse to engage
It's a weird
in
debate.
utopian conflicts.
You strawman more than any other person that I've ever seen. So the fact
mean
that
facts?
you're talking about hypehypotheticals is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Use one example of a straw man.
Okay, you talk about taxes every time. You talk about how the unemployment rate is so low.
Yeah, the lowest ever black,
taxes are so
Asian,
low.
disabled,
Do you want to
women,
talk?
and youth
Let's talk
unemployment.
about new income. Where is new income
Wages are up for the first time in 10 years.
Okay, well,
Not
in
bad.
Missouri, manufacturing wages in Missouri over the last 15 years have gone up 15%, and wages have gone up 0.09%. So maybe if we stopped outsourcing jobs like President Trump is doing, then we could actually do something
You know
about
that President Trump has the greatest increase in manufacturing jobs in the last 30 years.
Well,
over
why-
500,000.
Why has he not called out? Why has he not called out GM?
So let's get.
We
Thank
have
you
to-
for the
Thank
spirited
you for the question,
conversation.
but we have a lot of other people
Why-
ask some questions as well. So thank you for the question.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it.
He just wants everybody in the world to act as a vigilante against Trump and Trump alone. This was an embarrassing watch. The young man holding up the microphone is a strong soldier. I wouldn't last that long without making a face.
No, but you would never call like a gay person that to their face.
That seems like an absurd, like, why? No, of course, I'm not just going around. I'm a 35-year-old mother. I don't go around being like, hey, you're a It's just like, I'm not 18 years old. Like, I'm not going around calling people names, period. I wouldn't go up to a fat person and call them names. I wouldn't call it's just like it's an absurd thing to be going around pointing and calling people names because I don't like them. I would, no. So the answer is no, I would not.
Do you use the N-word?
No, I don't.
No. Okay. Here's something interesting that we may have some common ground on, okay? But what do you think about same-sex marriage?
It's a sin.
You think it's a sin? So you think
It
I'm
is a
sinful?
sin. What's that?
You think I'm sinful because I'm married to a man?
Yeah.
You do?
Yes, you're sinning. You are in a sinful relationship. I actually don't believe marriage can be between two men. So I don't.
But you understand, though, Candace, and maybe we're not going to agree on this now. I thought we would. Do you understand, though, that the same Bible verses and the same scriptures that are used to call same-sex marriage sinful are used to call interracial marriage sinful as well? And so there are people who would say that you are in a sinful marriage.
Can you tell me which verse it is that would make people say?
The thing is that it's actually not there, and that people twist the Bible verses. That's my whole point. Thank you for proving that, because it doesn't say that, and it's actually, you're going to say Leviticus or whatever. That's not actually what Leviticus says. But go on. I don't want to get into specifics about the Bible, but that's not what the Bible says. It's just people using and interpreting Scripture in a way that they want to interpret it. So. Look, you can believe whatever you want to believe. I don't believe that I'm in a sinful marriage, but there are people who believe, Candace Owens, that you are in a sinful marriage because you are in an interracial marriage. And I say that as someone who is in an interracial marriage, so I am doubly sinful.
Don Lemon never ceases to disappoint. What is he even talking about? He must have thought asking Candace that kind of question would make her cower or make her look bad. News flash, buddy.
Racism is a system of oppression used by a certain group using prejudice, institutional power, and it's situated by the media, government, and all these other.
So, give me an example of one thing you as a black man cannot do that I as a white man can do in America.
Got you. Okay, so about 2 weeks ago, right? I went to a DeSantis rally. Got my ticket, all that good bullshit. Been to a million different rallies of a kind, whether, I was a conservative at the time or whether I was a liberal, right? I know that as a black person, I am far more likely to be arrested for expressing my view, whether I am a conservative or a liberal. And I've done it on both sides. And, oh yes, I was arrested.
You were probably being a jerk. That's why you were arrested.
And that's the best part. And that's the best part, right? That's the best part. I wasn't even being a jerk. And the courts even found, our beloved courts.
Let me make sure I understand this. So you think the bigger problem than fathers not being in the home is a abstract conspiracy theory that you have that hecklers and jerks at political events are arrested because of the color of their skin?
Do you believe he wasn't actually being a jerk? Whatever your answer is, you have to see this.
530 murders in Chicago of the last year. How many were black on black crime?
Hey, I wasn't looking. But you know what I do know?
Well over 420 of them were black on black gang-related crimes. How is that racism to blame for that?
Let's talk. So now, are we going to talk about over-policing?
I'm sorry, sir. You're kind of demonstrating. You can't answer the question.
Would you like to talk about? I mean, we can talk about it. We can. Okay. Are you ready to address it, though?
Well,
are you ready to address it?
Yeah.
Because we can talk about black on black crime, but we need to talk about it as it pertains. We need to. Okay, let's talk about it, sis. I'm ready to talk about it.
All right, hold on. So let me just narrow this down. So let me just say this, okay?
All right.
So if you were to rank the 100 biggest problems in America, the fact that I know we're not a racist country is the best example you have.
So you know we're not
story of you getting kicked out of a DeSantis rally. If we were a racist country, you'd say, Charlie, I can't go in a convenience store. Charlie, I can't go into school. No, we actually live in such a amazingly decent country that whoa. Let's not do that, okay?
All I did was speak.
All right.
All I did was speak. No, you're trying to pull it out of my
Mostly peaceful, everybody. Mostly peaceful, okay?
I didn't lay hands on you.
All
I
right.
got witnesses. I did not touch you. No.
All right.
I touched the mic.
We're going to wrap this one up, but let me just say this.
Racism was a big issue, and we can pretend that it's not a big issue, but hey, if you don't want to, then that's just called being obtuse. And that's why I asked you, why did you have such a big problem with talking about racism? You want to claim that it's not there, and you can say all you want, but that still doesn't prove, that still does not.
If you want to talk about racism that could be proven, let me give you some examples of racism that could be proven. How about affirmative action at this college that discriminates against Asian students and white students? How about affirmative action hiring practices in the federal government? We are such a decent, non-racist country. The best example that he has
is to show that he was mistreated. And if he acted like this at the DeSantis event, I can see why he was kicked out of the DeSantis event.
Need I say more?
I'm driving as a black woman in a Mercedes. I was pulled over. Driving while black, have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of driving while
and
black.
it happens. It's happened to all of my brothers. It's happened to my father. It's happened to my uncles. This is a system of racism. Bro, I'm not about to do this. And you know what? I'm not even asking a question because I'm not down to sit here and sing Kumbaya and hold hands and talk about what we can change because we've been telling you guys, if you have to ask us what our problem is, it's no point. It's no point.
I'm going to say it again.
Missed it.
I'm going to say it again, and it's the exact same thing I said earlier. I refuse to take a black person seriously that wants to talk to me about the 0.00004% of black people, unarmed black people that are shot by police officers and does not want to have a conversation with me about the 17 million black babies that were aborted. No. What you guys are boycotting, you're focused on things that are not negatively. More black people were got struck by lightning in 2016 than shot by police. More police officers were shot by black people than the other way around. So what it comes down to is this is a lot of motion and there's no fact. That's what it comes down to. There's no fact.
It is fitting that you came up here with a Malcolm X book because you articulated exactly the opposite of some of the stuff he said, but also, you're right. Thank you. Yeah, flick me off. That's tolerant. It works. You're right. You don't want kumbaya. This is why the left must be obliterated in America, because they don't want to agree with us.
Why are you so upset? If you didn't have a question, why come forward? If you didn't want to discuss, why ask for the microphone? Why show up at all?
For example, gender identity disorder, that's the DSM-4, bro. We use the DSM-5 now for psychologists to be able to talk about...
I literally cited the DSM-5 in the speech, and it's called gender dysphoria, which is a term that I use throughout the speech, not gender identity disorder.
You sound like a bozo, bro. And you get no pussy, and you can't even make your wife wet, bro, so what's good?
The video of this woke, self-acclaimed physicist and mathematician did its rounds in 2022. He began by going on about receiving an award, but failed to make one sensible statement.
The nice thing about having several small children is I don't feel the necessity to have my masculinity
challenged. If we're using a
by
Western colonial idea of gender, then why should it apply? If we're using, because the gender binary is a Western colonialist framework of gender.
You're
you
right.
know?
Men and women don't exist in any other culture.
No.
You're
Think about Native American.
Nailed it.
Third gender people. I'm not saying that. Third gender people exist in Native American societies, Western African societies, like Southern Native American societies, like Mexico. So in other places that are not white dominated,
and
like the United States or Europe. And so you're saying white, so non-white people. I'm a mathematician and a physicist. You cannot tell me.
So I have a question.
And also, you're not a biologist.
So I have a question.
I'm 20.
As a mathematician and a physicist, what in the hell do you know about human biology?
And you got your law degree from Harvard. What do you know about biology? You got your law degree from Harvard.
And frankly, I would ask another question. If your logic is so flawed as a mathematician and a physicist, I would suggest that whichever institution gave you an award, revoke it immediately.
Is there a petition for that revocation?
Slavery was, of course, a very important part of the American economy, but it was also the most backward part of the American economy. Free labor is more economically efficient than slave labor. There's a reason that Alexis de Tocqueville, touring the United States in 1835, described the South as a society, quote, gone to sleep. In fact, the growth of the Southern economy remained slow all the way from basically the beginning of the Republic through the Jim Crow period, because during slavery it was slow, because it was all agricultural, and because it wasn't using free alienation of labor.
They always want their free speech while trumping on the free speech of others.
So we end up with the absurd spectacle of Matthew Desmond suggesting that the quote-unquote brutality of American capitalism is modeled in slavery. I've offered the opportunity for this gentleman to be first in the Q&A line, and now he's actually just disrupting the ability of everybody else to hear the speech. Honestly, I have a 3-year-old who disrupts this way. But the continuation of income disparity among races in the United States is today overwhelmingly not the result of racism, Jim Crow, or slavery. Income mobility and disparity is a statistic that should worry us. Honestly, honestly, I'm more than happy to have this person ask a question, but this is now the 4th time that we've been interrupted during the speech. Sir, if you can't if you can't at least sit down and be respectful to the other, 1,500 people in the room, then get up and leave. I'm simply not going to continue this nonsense until this person leaves, frankly. I can't, I'm sorry, I can't continue. This is silly.
Ha, the sound of peace, quiet, and intelligence.
You know, I really agree with everything you have to say about restoring American morality. And one of the things you say is that in order to restore our values and save America, that we have to quit pornography. But I have a crippling porn addiction, and so I just want to know, how you resist.
Look, you kind of revealed yourself with the mask that you're a satire. There's no way you agree with everything that I'm saying. But I will talk about this issue. Porn destroys lives. It's predatory. It's not good for you. There's no redemptive quality. It's a serious issue. It affects the brain harsher than heroin and then cocaine. A lot of people struggle with it, and I've talked openly about it in my life with the debate I had with the porn person. Look, I'll just tell you honestly, I think it's disgusting that you're coming up here and trying to create satire of life of something that destroys people's lives, and I think that's really reprehensible. So, next question. Thank you.
Is she actually indirectly defending pornography? I mean, are we even shocked? People have their OF on their bios. It's the next thing they say after their pronouns.
I'm saving the babies.
No,
Are you
you don't have a right to tell me what to do with my life. You don't have to.
It's not very nice of you.
Go to hell, mother.
She tried to take all my flyers, but she couldn't.
The lesson here is don't try to attack other people. When you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. Now her headphones are ruined.
So what is your formal education background? Because I guess a lot of people don't know what your undergraduate degree was in.
So I was at UCLA in political science and then Harvard Law School.
Okay. So you don't have, you wouldn't consider yourself an expert in sociology?
I mean, I don't consider sociology a particularly expert field, but go ahead. I think I'm able to read a sociological study.
He must have kicked his feet in excitement when was thinking about that line.
What I'm getting at is that you're not considered an expert in sociology, psychology, gender studies, lesbian dance theory, many of these things that you've brought up tonight.
I know a lot more about all those others than lesbian dance theory. As far as, if you want to take issue with the argument, I would urge you not to use the argument from authority, which is somebody has a PhD by their name, they know what they're talking about. That's a dumb argument.
What I'm trying to get at is that the fact that do you have any other further education in any of these topics or any of these fields of study?
I don't need a 7-year degree in sociology, no bullshit when I hear it.
It was not his day. He just kept getting shot down.
And granted, that's your opinion.
Right. Because I'm here, yeah, giving it.
You're also offering kind of an unqualified opinion on a lot of these topics.
See, again, you're just making the argument from authority. I don't think slapping a PhD from Ferris State next to your name makes you an expert in all things in the field in which you propose to speak. Okay, the fact is that either my argument's good or my argument's bad. Citing to my credentials is a really bad way of making an argument. It's like it's actually the equivalent of, it's so funny, when people do this, it's the equivalent of actually a religious person saying, citing to the Bible for an argument. I'm a very religious person, right? I mean, see this? It's the yarmulke, okay? I'm a religious person, okay? I never cite to the Bible. The reason I don't cite to the Bible is because that's an argument from authority. Okay, you may not believe the authority to which I'm citing. I don't believe the authority to which you're citing. So you're going to have to make me an argument as to what I'm saying that's wrong instead of just saying I don't have the properly enumerated degree from the institution of your choice.
Unconscious bias is a concept well documented in psychological studies, which is basically that people associate negative things with people of color and positive things with whites. So if that is true, given that that is true, how does white privilege not exist?
Okay, so you're asking about unconscious bias. I apologize because it's kind of echoey, but the question was, if there is unconscious bias, just to repeat it so I'm making sure I get it right, if there is unconscious bias, how does white privilege not exist?
The question is, given that there is unconscious bias, how does white privilege not exist?
So number one, so when I speak about white privilege, yes, so when I speak about white privilege, I'm speaking specifically about behavior. Okay, there have been no studies, and really I've looked at these studies, the connection between what they call implicit bias, this is their favorite phrase now, implicit bias, unconscious bias, and biased behavior has yet to be proven at any level that is even remotely necessary to be used in, for example, a courtroom, which is why it's never been used in a courtroom. It is also true that there is no way, there really isn't, there's been no proven way to alleviate what they call unconscious bias, which means that we're ghost hunting. So what I would suggest is that if there is unconscious bias, and I'll acknowledge the possibility or the reality of unconscious bias, if there is, then I need you to I don't care about what's in people's heads so much as what they do. So if you point me to a racist behavior, don't worry, I'll let you respond. If you point me to a racist behavior, I'm happy to stand alongside you and protest it. What I can't do is protest about things in people's head that I don't know about because I'm not a mind reader.
Okay, so that's a really interesting response. And to that I have two questions. Firstly, what I've heard you say that this is something that, the way people think doesn't affect their behavior. So that's the first thing you've said. So I'm really curious if you can kind of give me another example of a thought that somebody has which doesn't affect their behavior. Like, do people who, support Trump not vote for him? Like, I'm very curious about that.
Yes.
And secondly, so the second thing that I want to ask is that if it's something it's hard to fix, does it mean we shouldn't do anything about it? Because you said, I don't know if we can change how people think. Does that mean we shouldn't try?
I mean, first of all, not a great impression. But beyond that, my voice isn't that low. But beyond that, as far as the first question, which do people have thoughts that don't manifest in behavior? Yes, all the time.
For instance,
every thought that you have about walking up here and strangling me right now. I assume like we have thoughts all the time that don't manifest in behavior, and this is true every single day. We consider thoughts that cross our minds. And the problem with unconscious bias is the idea is you don't even know that you're having the thought, right? So how can you stop it if you don't even know that you're having it? But then we should be able to gauge the unconscious bias and its impact on behavior. That's why it's unconscious bias as opposed to conscious bias. The idea behind unconscious bias is that it's not even a ghost, it's a ghost of a ghost, because you don't even know you're having the thought. So people, the whole idea behind diversity training is the idea that you can retrain people to stop their chain of thought in order so that it doesn't manifest in behavior. I don't think that every thought manifests in behavior. If it did, then every time a man saw a good-looking woman walk down the street, a straight man saw a good-looking woman down the street, we'd have a real mess on our hands. So the second question, the idea was a little too broad for me to respond to, which is, just because something is tough, don't we have to face up to it? Yes, we have to face up to tough things all the time. And one of the tough things I would suggest that we face up to is that you have a lot more control over your own behavior and the decisions you make than the supposedly widespread unconscious bias of people you've never met.
She has to be one of those whose thoughts reflect in their actions. She came up and within seconds of speaking, she said, "Black people and whites. Flip the table and show me what happens." The mimicry was so unnecessary too. If the roles were reversed, that would be the Wokies' argument against the right for the next 100 years.
All of that has been missed by the ignorant activists who insist that GW ditch the colonial. The point that they're missing is this: the colonials that the mascot represents were not defenders of colonialism. In fact, they were the opposite of defenders of colonialism. They fought a bloody war, they risked their lives to end colonialism in America and to end rule in Great Britain. They wanted their political independence.
Fuck you, you fucking fascists! Shame! 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 Shame!
Oh, these kids are really proving me wrong. You see, because my premise was that these students are ignorant and not well behaved. But they're proving me wrong tonight.
You would expect college students to act like literates. Oh, professors, behold!
You know, you talk a lot about rationality and a good discussion, and a lot of, reasonable stuff, but it was curious, when you were talking, I didn't hear any science. I didn't hear any rational discussion. And if you want to have rational discussion, say about, climate change or transgenderism, I actually have studies here. I mean, that would take too much time, but I don't know how much you'd be interested.
What? Give an example of a lie that I said.
The 6,000 kids you said that were given hormone blockers because of some trans conspiracy.
I corrected that the next day when the news was corrected.
Yeah, corrected, but it was in the study. You said it was a trans activist or some trans conspiracy.
No, I said it was a drug that was used for transgender kids, which is true. And I said that it had caused 6,000 deaths, which is true. But what I misspoke and what was misreported in the news is that all 6,000 were kids. And that obviously was not true. And I corrected it on my show the next day.
You can't dispel the rationality here. It's your responsibility.
Well, I think it's very rational to correct yourself when you make a mistake. And that's why I do it every time I can.
But I think it's your responsibility as a political commentator to a lot of impressionable young people here that you report accurately. And that's not the first
I agree,
time.
and that's why when I do make a mistake, rare though it may be, I correct myself. Is there an example? You said I told a lot of lies tonight. What would be an example of that?
Lies tonight? Well, no, you didn't say lies tonight. You lack rationality. You didn't cite any evidence to talk about the climate change.
I said that the mankind is not going to be wiped out within 20 years because no scientist says. I'm sorry?
Science would disagree.
Which scientist?
The 97% of all scientists who say that 1 to 2 degrees Celsius will melt the ice caps such that there will be rising sea levels, mass extinctions, and it won't end the Earth, but it will change to a certain point the ecology of our planet such that it is much more difficult for humans to survive. That is the consensus. And a lot of climate change deniers like yourself, like Ben, like Clavin, they perpetuate that this is all a liberal hoax and that science...
No, I'm not saying it's a liberal. I mean, it's obviously being pushed by politicians primarily. That's why at the United Nations, it's not...
Politics. Politicians are going to push political issues.
Right, it's politics, not science. That's my point.
This is getting hard to watch. Please do some research before getting in front of cameras to debate. Well, that's the bell. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like. Let us know in the comments what you learned in Educating Wokies 101. Subscribe and turn on your notifications for this channel so you don't miss anything. Don't worry, there will be a next video and we will see you then.